All right, welcome back to Iron Outreach. I'm Jonathan. I'm here with Dan. Dan, nice to meet you. And Gene, nice to meet you guys. Do I have your permission to use this on YouTube and other media channels?
Certainly.
Certainly.
Okay. All right. Gene and Dan are both going to be vying for $5 Dunkin' Donut gift cards. We're going to ask them a couple of Bible trivia questions, and if they answer these questions, they're going to earn these gift cards. You guys ready?
Yep.
Yowzer.
How confident do you feel, Gene?
Extremely.
How about yourself?
Fairly.
So we got fairly and extremely. Okay, I like his confidence. We should all have his
How
confidence.
about my honesty?
I like his. He's got a point. He's got the honesty. You got the confidence. Okay, cool. Let's answer the questions or ask the questions and see if you guys can answer them. You ready? Yep. Okay. Question number 1. Put on your thinking caps. I hope that's a thinking cap. You forgot yours at home. Question number 1. Spell God.
Capital G-O-D.
D-O-G.
Okay, you got it. You've confused me. You want to try it again?
D-O-G.
Okay, we're just going to count it because he got the letters. He didn't get them in the right order, but we're just going to count it. Okay, very good. You feeling confident? Feeling good so far? Okay. Question number 2. In the Bible, there are 2 places you can go when you die, heaven and hell. Is heaven the good one or the bad one?
Heaven is a wonderful one. Okay. Hell is terrible, yeah.
Depends on your perspective.
Where is DOG sending you?
Probably out back.
Okay, but in the biblical account of heaven and hell, is heaven the good one or the bad one? Based on your understanding.
Based on my perspective, it's a wash.
Okay, well, what does the Bible say?
Have no idea. Don't read that.
Okay, he's kind of like 0 for 2 here. These are the layup questions. Okay, let me give you the third one. Ready? The Bible contains 66 books. I want you to name them all in reverse alphabetical order.
Bada bing.
Genesis and the book of Daniel.
Okay, very good. He got it right. Here's your $5 gift card. No, I'm just kidding. I was going to give you guys these cards anyway. Enjoy. Do with them as you will. Buy yourself a coffee, nice sandwich, whatever you want. So I appreciate you guys stopping to chat with me. We were chatting for a little bit on the path. Dan, you were telling me that your background is Roman Catholic. You grew up in Pittsburgh as a Roman Catholic, right?
Correct.
Okay, and we didn't get into what your upbringing was like.
I alluded to having a question for you after your 3 questions.
Yeah,
Can I ask that question now?
Sure.
My partner here, Dan, his name has some huge biblical connotation. Do you know what it is?
Are you referring to the tribe of Dan or Daniel, the prophet?
Very good. I have to give you back your Dunkin' Donut.
That's the first time I've ever won the Dunkin' Donut gift card. Wow. All these videos, this is the first time I've been walking away a winner. That feels great. It feels good to have won something for once. No. Okay, so but what was your like upbringing like religious? What was there any element in your upbringing that was religious or spiritual?
Sure.
Would you care to elaborate?
I don't honestly have much attachment to anything of that type in memory, but I'm sure it was there.
Okay. Did you have any memory of your parents taking you to church at all, or?
My fondest memory affiliated with church is when I turned 16, I was allowed to drive the Famiel car and let out anyone in the car that wanted to go to church, and then I was assigned parking that car behind the church. And then I had to be there to pick them up. And this allowed me to escape actually going to church.
It's a good gig.
Okay. All right. Yeah, good work if you can get it, right? Yeah. What kind of, just out of curiosity, if you don't know the answer, that's okay. I was just curious if you remember what type of church was it. Was it Catholic? Like, did you come from a Catholic family?
No, it was Martin Luther, his church.
Okay. Did he attend? Did you see him like on the coffee line?
No, this was predates that. I think he was around in 1100.
It predates Martin
Who
Luther.
told you where to park the car?
Exactly. He was a valet.
Are you you are either over 500 years old or a time traveler, I take it?
Yes.
Maybe
Yes, both.
both.
Okay.
I have a question for you, Jonathan.
go ahead.
I have a friend. I'm a Roman Catholic,
Yep.
such as that is.
Rome's
Yeah. And I have a friend, and we're a walking friend. And she's of a different Protestant church, and she says, you know, we all take our vitamins, and we're gonna go to the hospital when we get sick, but at some point in time we're gonna die. And she says, quickly, automatically, she said, well, she doesn't really mind dying because wait, I'm not laughing, because she feels that she strongly believes and she's sure that when she dies, she's going to be reunited with her mother and her dad and her all family friends, and they're going to have like a big wonderful picnic in heaven, and it's going to be great and fine and wonderful. And she knows that from the bottom of her heart. And all I'm saying is, I like the idea. I kind of hope it's true. To say you know that, I don't know that. I'd like to believe that. I may be greatly surprised this way or greatly surprised that way, but we'll see. Then she says, well, Dan, you have to have faith. Well, you do have to have faith, but you have to always use your brain too and see what you see and see what you see.
Is there a question in there?
No.
Yeah, I was waiting for what was the
Well,
question?
the
Hey,
question-
thanks for helping me out. I got to hire this guy as my assistant.
How do you explain that?
Yeah, so well, one thing I'm gonna say about the Roman Catholic persuasion is that, and this actually ties into Martin Luther, and this is part of how the Reformation, which started in 1517, basically started on October 31st, 1517. So we're coming up on Halloween,
My
but
birthday.
is it
Yep.
in 1517?
Well, I'm pretty well preserved for my age.
Yeah, you guys are both time travelers. I could tell. So, the Roman Catholic Church went through a very long period, and I think that this extends into current times, but maybe not to the same degree, where they were kind of concealing Scripture from the people. So they've got possession of the Bible, but it's translated into Latin, and they're not allowing anybody to read it. Nobody in this time period actually reads Latin, so nobody is actually reading the Bible for themselves to see what it says.
They're a little secret, yeah.
Yeah, and I think you can make a case that the idea was that they were able to maintain control over people by having the Bible to themselves and being able to kind of like lord it over people because nobody else is reading it. So Martin Luther came along and he's like, well, hang on a second. We should all be reading this, and he ends up translating it into German, and then there's inspiration there to translate it into English, and now the Bible can be read in many different languages, and we could take a look for ourselves, and we can determine for ourselves if what the Bible says is true. But there was a period of time in history, and really, I mean, 500 years ago is not that long ago in the course of things, when people were not, especially for time travelers such as yourselves, but there was a time period where.
Like last weekend.
Right. So, but there's a time when people weren't reading the Bible for themselves and had to take people's word for it. But now you can open up the pages of the Bible for yourself and see for yourself. So one thing I would encourage you to do is to do that, is to open up a Bible and take a look at it and see what you think. Now, question I have for you. Let me back up a little bit if I can, if you don't mind. And I don't mean to seem as if I'm giving your question a runaround, but I'm going to lead to a point. Do you believe that good and evil exist?
Yes.
You can step a little closer.
Yes, I do.
Okay. What about you?
Depends on your perspective.
I had a feeling you were going to say that. Okay. So, in what perspective would somebody say that good and evil do exist?
Say it again.
Well, because I guess what I'm getting at is, if you think that whether good and evil exist depends on perspective, I think what you're saying is they don't. Am I correct?
Is what?
Well, it sounds like what you're saying is that good and evil is something that people decide for themselves.
Bingo.
Okay, that's definitely like I'm not mischaracterizing your. Okay, what about you, Dan? Do you think good and evil exist?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Can you give me an example of evil?
killing a large number of people for no reason whatsoever.
Is there any example in history when that's taken place?
The news, yeah.
Yeah.
The Hamas kabooming over Israel, and now Israel kabooming over Hamas. There's evil.
Now here's my question. Maybe
One's
you
justified, one's not. And then, as Gene would say, depends on your perspective.
Sure. So let me ask you this. Maybe you can help me with this. Are we prepared to say that that's only evil because we've decided it's evil? Or is there something that says to us, well, that's evil because it's inherently evil? In other words, is what you're describing, genocide, is that only evil because we've decided as human beings that genocide is evil? Or is it evil because it's just simply evil?
It's simply evil. I think most religious faith, religion, belief, perspectives, whatever you want to call it, nobody condones too well the fact that it's just you're having an afternoon one day, a bomb comes over and kills you. That's evil. Your life is more precious than that. It shouldn't be snuffed out in that way.
Gene, what do you think?
That's his perspective. I think there's a fairly good argument to make regarding how we have decided collectively as a species that we're more important than any other living thing on the planet. And that's a shame, because certainly the animal atrocities are equally as bad as the human killing. How many species are there that kill their own kind? I don't know the answer to that from a biological viewpoint, but I think pretty much across the board most animals have some predator base that is after them for sustenance. We kill each other just because we don't get along. We don't kill each other because we're forcing ourselves to cannibalize others, although that has happened, of course, in the past. But just random slaughter just for the sake of the slaughter because I don't see eye to eye with what you think. I don't know. Again, we decided that's evil, yet it's okay to slaughter chickens, cows, lambs, etc., etc.
So what I'm getting, and I'm judging based on your tone of voice, so I could be wrong, but what I'm getting actually from the way you're talking about this is that you do think those things are evil. Like you're talking about the slaughter of animals, whatever, other people. But actually, what I'm getting, like just interpreting your tone of voice, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that you do actually see an inherent evil in certain actions. Now, you may decide some things are evil that aren't being addressed. This is kind of like part of what I'm picking up from you. But it sounds from your tone like you're saying there are things that are evil in this world. Like there are things that are happening that you look at and say, man, that's evil stuff that somebody should be doing something about.
We interpret it that way. I personally don't describe that there's evil or good. It is what it is. It just is. It's like when the student's ready, the teacher will appear. And you learn from that whatever you choose to learn from it.
Have you set your own standard of good and evil for yourself, or good and bad for yourself?
I struggle not to do that.
In what sense? Like, so you when you say you struggle not to do it, does that mean that there's something inside you that wants to judge your actions based on good and evil, but you're trying not to judge yourself?
Correct.
Was that what you mean?
Correct.
Okay. Why would you not? Don't you have a conscience?
Why would I not judge myself?
Yeah, like
I'm judging myself based on my unfortunate upbringing, whatever it may be, good, bad, or indifferent, in the belief of this is good, this is bad, yada, yada, yada. I think it's a shame that humans are so oriented to human behavior and human needs solely against everything else in the world.
So,
including the planet.
Okay. So, but you have a conscience that occasionally pings you, though, and says, that would be a bad idea what you're doing right there.
Sometimes, and again, that's what I struggle with, because I try to not get caught up in the conflama of my mind.
When that happens to you, when your mind tells you this is good, this is not, What does it tell you about yourself? Like, what's your character assessment of yourself? Are you doing okay by your own standard of judgment, or do you look at yourself and say, "Man, I've messed a few things up morally by your standard"?
I think I'm doing fine by my standards.
Dan, what about yourself? You can come join us. Come join us over here. How are you doing on the scale of right and wrong?
I respect people. I'm honest. I'm trying to behave myself, trying to be a good guy.
Okay. Are you familiar with the Ten Commandments?
Very much so.
Can you name any?
Honor thy mother, don't steal, don't lie, don't covet each other's wife, don't covet each other's goods, shouldn't steal, shouldn't lie, don't take the Lord's name in vain, go to church every Sunday.
He's doing okay.
I'm Catholic.
You know a few things.
I went 8 years with that stuff.
Yeah.
I'm surprised I didn't do better than that, but good enough.
How do you feel you've done with if you're Catholic and if you're a Catholic, that should be I would say your standard of righteousness, right? The Ten Commandments. How do you think you've done in keeping them?
Generally speaking, I'll give myself a C+B.
Okay. What about you? I know that you're going to say that's not your standard, but if it was, how do you think you've done?
The Ten Commandments?
He just gave you a few.
Yeah, I know the idea of the Ten Commandments. I think it's a crock, but that's my perspective.
Okay. So if God were to judge you by the Ten Commandments, I didn't say he is or isn't, because that's what you're gonna say. Although I might have my perspective, but if he were, how do you think you'd do? If you were in a situation where there's a God and he's judging you by the Ten Commandments, how does Gene do on Judgment Day?
I think my God, the DOG, would probably pee on my leg.
Okay. What about yourself?
I don't think God's up there saying, let's see what Dan's doing today. Oh, yeah. Rude to his wife, stole an apple out of a giant grocery store, etc. I don't think that's the case.
Again?
No.
You're stealing apples we're on camera here, man. You sure you want to?
I'm sorry, I'll take it back. I'll pay for it. No.
My goodness. You could at least steal a grape, you know?
Yeah.
Not a whole apple.
They're easy.
Everybody steals.
They're easy to transport, yeah.
He went for the big kahuna.
Yeah, he's getting cocky. That's what it is. I get it.
I swipe the olives, okay? I do that.
So with the
You know,
olives.
Giant, they put out bananas and oranges for kids.
I started going goo goo gaga. Yeah.
He's reaching for the bananas for the kids. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
That's
Takes the food out
I'm
of
young
kids'
and hard,
mouths.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
I get it. Okay, so I'm going to give you the 10 Commandments real quick. I'm going to give you 4 of them. I just want to see how you do, okay? And I know how you feel about this as a standard, but this is what I'm leading towards. I just want to give it to you guys so I can give you something to think about. And I appreciate your time. This guy's giving me a hard time, but I appreciate his time anyway. I'm just kidding. I love talking to you. So I'm going to give you 4, and I just want you guys to tell me how you do, okay? Have you ever told a lie?
Yes.
How many?
Can't say. I wasn't keeping track.
How many lies does it take to be considered a liar?
Over 20,000.
Over 20,000 lies. Who's keeping count of all these lies?
The people who've been listening to Trump.
The people over here in Harrisburg, they got like a little ticker. There's another one for Dan. He's at 19,562. We're almost there. Gene, have you ever told a lie?
Hell no.
Is that a lie?
Hell yes.
Okay, finally
How-
you get the truth.
How many lies does it take in your mind to be considered a liar?
I don't believe in the concept, so it's unquantifiable.
Okay. How many murders does it take to be considered a murderer?
How many chickens get slaughtered or cows get slaughtered so that we can eat and we actually could survive probably off a plant-based diet and don't have to kill any animal?
Based on his math, I'm going to guess 20,000,
All right,
I guess.
let's go with that.
So, but no, serious question though. Serious question. If you could step this way a little bit for me, how many murders would you believe that somebody can be a murderer, right? So, how many murders would it take to be considered a murderer?
have no idea.
So Dan says 1. You wouldn't agree? One murder would make someone a murderer?
This interview's murdering somebody somewhere.
It's murdering my heart a little bit. Okay. No, but my point is, and we're just looking at that. That's the first of the 4 commandments. I'm gonna try to breeze through these for you guys, so I can let you get back on your walk here. But my point there is, if one murder would make somebody categorically a murderer, I think you can make a strong case that one lie would make someone a liar. Have you ever stolen anything of any value?
No.
Nothing. Is that one of your lies?
No, of any value, no. I stole peppermint patties from
You just admitted to stealing an apple from
they
Johnny.
that was a joke.
Yeah.
They were only 2 cents a piece, so I only stole a few of them. went to confession, and I confessed that I stole some candy.
If I steal $10 from your wallet, would you consider me a thief?
Yes.
If I stole $1 million from your wallet, would you consider me a thief?
Even better one, but even worse one.
I know, if you had $1 million in your wallet, if you had a wallet that could fit $1 million, and I stole $1 million out of it.
X-ray vision here.
So what's the difference between $10 and $1 million when I'm stealing from you? Isn't it the same thing?
So pretty much, yeah.
Have you ever stolen anything, Gene?
Absolutely. Every day, in every way. Every chance I get.
Okay. Have you ever used the name of God in vain?
Yes.
Said GD, OMG?
Yeah. Yes.
Do I even dare to ask you the question?
I said DOG and I stick by it.
Okay. Last one. This is a tough one. Jesus said, if you look at a woman to lust for her, you've committed adultery with her in your heart. Have you ever looked at a woman with lust?
Yes.
You worry me. But go ahead. What you got for me?
You're not a woman. Don't be worried.
Hey, it's 2023. You don't know.
Oh, you're right. You're right.
But I'm not. Just for the record, for those viewing at home, I am not.
Where's that rainbow in the sky?
Have you ever looked at a woman with lust?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Probably every day.
So here's the summary. And by the way, I want you guys to understand. I've stopped you. You're on a nice brisk walking through Harrisburg.
About an hour ago.
Yeah, it's been a while actually. But you were on a nice walk. You're minding your business. I'm stopping you. So I'm not stopping you to like judge you or anything. Just to be clear, because like, what kind of person would I be if I was? So, but we're having a conversation here. So I use that gauge of the 10 Commandments to give to you guys as a tool, just so you can see yourself the way that we believe God would see you, and by your own admissions. And I think you might have different views on what this means for you.
No doubt.
But by your own admissions, you would each be lying, thieving, blaspheming adulterers at heart. Am I correct? By your own admission, based on the 10 Commandments?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Of course, by design.
So, if God has to judge you by this standard on Judgment Day, and hell and heaven are the two options hanging in the balance, which I know my friend Gene here will contest. But if God's judging you on Judgment Day, and you got heaven on one end and hell on the other, and He's looking at you and saying, well, by the standard of the 10 Commandments, you're a lying, thieving, blaspheming adulterer at heart. You still expect to go to heaven, or are you thinking maybe now it's going to be hell?
God has to be at least the nice guy as I am, and I wouldn't put somebody in the fiery flames of hell for the little dinky sins I've done. I'm going to heaven if there is indeed one. I think so, because I haven't done anything horrendous to people, and I don't intend to.
So how old are you, Dan?
Coming up on 72.
72. Okay. So in 8 years, you'll be 80. Now, I've actually done the math on this. If you sin... Yeah. I did. Well, that's not the math. Yes.
Pencil and paper.
Yeah. So, no, I've done the math on if you live to the age of 80 and sin once a day, you'll commit 29,000 sins in your lifetime. So, if you are standing before a judge, and let's say you've murdered someone, and the judge says, we found you guilty of murder, and you say, well, yeah, but that's the only thing I've ever done wrong. I've been pretty good. He's going to say, yeah, but you still murdered someone. So even if you've been pretty good, if you've sinned once a day and lived to the age of 80, and you've got 29,000 sins to account for, have you really been as good as you think you are? And wouldn't God require restitution for the 29,000 things that you did do wrong?
You can't compare me stealing my little peppermint patties with murdering somebody. So my sins relative to this whole deal, my sins are teeny tiny, and then there's big gigantic sins. We were talking before about good and evil. The Holocaust, out of the clear blue sky, because they decided that the Jewish people are to be eradicated. They killed them. That's evil.
Right. That was my point in bringing that up was that I believe firmly that good and evil exist outside of us. I believe that there's a standard of good and evil, and if good and evil are not things that we've decided. Now I know Gene disagrees. He thinks that we decide what's good and what's evil. I don't. I believe that good and evil are set for us outside of ourselves. I believe that all of mankind is capable of calling something that's evil good, and something good evil. I mean, there were people in Germany who were shaking their fists in agreement with the Holocaust. Human beings have the ability to justify some pretty dark stuff. But I believe what's evil is evil and what's good is good. Now, if good and evil exist outside of us, that implies a sentient force that's deciding what's good and evil. I can't say good and evil are laws of the universe that exist outside of us, but not attribute it to a personality. Because, for example, good and evil can exist outside of us, but we've got these steps here, we've got the Capitol building, we've got these trees. None of those inanimate objects are capable of determining what's good and what's evil. It requires a thinking mind. And so I believe that the thinking mind outside of us that determines what is good and evil is God. And I believe that God does sit in judgment of mankind. Now, I do believe he's also merciful. That's the good news. The bad news is he's got a justice streak. But the good news is he's also loving and merciful. So here's what we believe. This is what I'm leading up to. And I'm watching Gene kind of smile here. That's fine. And I appreciate, by the way, you're awesome for standing and talking to me. Even though I think we disagree on these things, like I'm very appreciative that you've stopped and spent all this time talking to me and shared your perspective. I really do. And if you don't walk away agreeing with me, that's fine. I wasn't necessarily expecting to change your mind on the spot. I wanted to have a conversation.
You're not proselytizing.
Well, I wouldn't say I'm not, but I am. I am. But ultimately, my goal is to just have a conversation and give you something to think about the way I see things, and then you got to do with it what you do with it. But I appreciate that that we've had this conversation. So here's our perspective. Here's the perspective that I derived from the Bible. Good and evil do exist. God determines them. God does intend to get restitution for the evil that's committed in this world, the sin. Right, and we've all, I think we agree because we just went through the list. We've all committed, sin in our lives. God does intend to take restitution for it, and left to our own devices, we would make restitution for our own sin. When we die, God's going to sit in judgment of us, and we believe that the penalty for that is eternity in hell, which is a very rough penalty, like you just said. And you say, well, that doesn't seem right because I stole some peppermint patties. I get you. I'm with you. But a sin, I know. But a sin against an eternal God requires.
Did you share them, or did you eat them all yourself?
So you didn't
What do you think I'm nuts? I ate them. They're delicious.
So he didn't even share these peppermint patties. These famous peppermint patties.
That's
So,
plain old thievery,
but
yeah.
I really don't mean to make light of it, because I do believe that an eternal God requires an eternal penalty for the sins that are committed against him. So what I want to leave you with is this, and I know you know some of this as a Catholic, and I know you know some of this because you've heard it out, in the world, because
I read comic books.
yeah, you've been around the block here in Harrisburg a few times. You've heard some of these things. So, but here's the moral of the story. Left to our own devices, God's going to require restitution from us for the sins that we've committed. But he did provide another way, which was 2,000 years ago. Jesus walked the earth, walked amongst the people, lived a sinless life because he was truly God and truly man. He was both. He had a man nature and a God nature, so he was able to live a sinless life. When they sent him to the cross, he went without having committed any sins or any crimes. They kill him on the cross. He is buried. He comes out of the grave 3 days later. He hangs out for 40 days, eats fish with the guys, hangs out, and then he goes to heaven. And now we're told that if we repent of our sin, which means turn from it, and turn towards him in belief, our belief in him will transfer the penalty for our sin to him and what he did on the cross, and will transfer his righteousness to us. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's some story.
It's a good story. It's the greatest story ever told.
Unless
But-
you don't believe it.
But will you think about what we talked about? I mean, I
I'm always
appreciate
thinking
that.
about this stuff. I'm always thinking about this.
Yeah, I would encourage you to. I mean, 150,000 people die every day, and a lot of people don't know their day is coming until it gets there. As you know, if we all knew what time the thief was coming, we'd be home to stop him from breaking into the house. Correct?
I have no attachment to anything, so not correct.
So yeah, so the point is, you know, we're all getting older here. So I hope that this is something that you guys will think about. I think I'll leave you with this final analogy. We like to compare Jesus to a parachute. Sounds very strange, although he probably likes it. So we like to compare him to a parachute. If you're on an airplane and you're 10,000 feet up and the plane's going to crash, and the pilot comes in and says, you're going to have to do something because this plane's going down, and somebody offers you a parachute, it's not enough to acknowledge the parachute's existence and say, you know, in a perfect world, that probably would save my life. You want to put the parachute on, because otherwise you're counting in yourself to jump out of the plane and flop your arms and hope you make it all the way down to the ground. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. I appreciate you guys spending time to talk to me, and I hope you will think about it. I want to give you one of these as well. This is a Gospel of John. Okay. If you don't like it, hand it on to somebody else as you're walking. You're good? Okay. But I do appreciate your time. You're way off camera, but they remember you. They've seen you. Go ahead. Wave to the camera. You can say hi.
To Louise Lautrec.
Dan, thank you very much for talking with me.
My pleasure.
Gene, thank you very much.
Thank you, John. You're very patient.
I appreciate you guys' time. Okay. God bless you guys.